Maybe not. Hello, Kevin.
Hey Rene, how's it going?
Very good. Yourself?
Good, good.
You having a good day today?
Not too bad. It's damper than I thought, but it's a nice day overall. I would say the
Nice.
winds aren't too bad.
Nice. It's beautiful out here
Just
today.
saw some ducks, geese flying towards us. Actually.
Yeah, nice. So you got a rally coming on the 5th of November?
Yep, Tuesday, November 5th, from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the northwest corner of Victoria Park, up by Central and Richmond. We'll be just outside the gates there at Victoria Park. Spread awareness.
So we're gonna bring all your signs and everything over.
Yep, the sign that you and I made, the big one with the painted. It's basically Ontario's WSIB ignores doctors, interferes in medical advice, and unfairly denies claims. Is basically what the overall message of the Prescription Overruled report is, and that's why we're doing this rally. It's on the 4-year anniversary of a report called Prescription Overruled. It came out by the OFL, Ontario Federation of Labour, and Ontario Network of Injured Workers Groups.
Now you say prescription overruled. Can you define a little bit what you mean, or what they mean, the OFL, by prescription overruled?
Yep, so basically the overall report basically highlights how Ontario's Workplace Safety Insurance Board, which for most people recognize it as a workers' compensation, how they systematically ignore the advice of medical treating physicians of injured workers.
So if I get this right, the WSIB is overruling the decision that your doctor is going to do on you, saying you're hurt to this point and you can't do it.
Yes.
And they're going to say, well, no, we don't believe that.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of bullshit.
Yep, exactly. And then what happens is a lot of injured workers, if you notice, WSIB likes to brag about this number, how 92% of injured workers get back to work. Well, where does he come up with that number? Because what happens is they try to force injured workers back before they're medically able to go back to work. So your doctor says you should be off for a month. Well, WSIB will end up making it so maybe you're forced back in, right? And then you go back after a week or two, and maybe you go back on modified duties, but you shouldn't be working at all.
Yeah, you haven't
right?
had time to heal yet.
Had to heal or do therapy or whatever, and a lot of times WSIB denies the needed therapy or treatment or prescription medications, whatever it may be.
Now, do WSIB have real doctors to make those ruling on? Or how is that done? Is that just a paper bullet?
Yeah, the people like to use the term paper doctors to describe what WSIB has. They have these either medical consultants, nurse consultants. Who knows even what they are exactly, right? Maybe some of them are actual doctors, but they're on WSIB's payroll. So which way do you think their decision is going to go, right? They're trying to save money, deny claims every year, and this is even a couple years old, this stat, but you know, healthcare costs go up like 4.5, 4.6, 5% a year, and yet, right, all this money that gets funded into the system is supposed to pay for injured workers' treatment, benefits, loss of earnings, whatever needed, right? As long as you have that injury or illness. And it's taken away from the original principles of the original compensation system of 105 years, 6 years ago, you know. It's sad how it's turned into a employer-friendly, save costs at all expense.
You just mentioned principles there. You're talking about which principles?
The Meredith principles.
Meredith principle, which was in 1913, right?
Yeah.
That's when the workers fought the government and stood up against the government to force the government to compensate injured workers that had been hurt in their line of duty.
Yes.
And that brought about the Workmen's Compensation Act.
Yep.
And then in the 60s, or is it 70s, quote me if I'm wrong,
70s,
they changed it into the Workers' Compensation Act to include like the women, because it's not just workmen's, it's also work women, but to include that. But then tell us what happened in 97 where evil, I'll use a nicer word, evil Harris government
Yeah, well, under Mike Harris, actually, the current chair of the WSIB, Elizabeth Whitmer, was back then the Minister of Labor, who actually put forward the Bill 99, which is the Workplace Safety Insurance Act, which is what turned the Workers' Compensation Board into the Workplace Safety Insurance Board. So now it's more about employers insuring the employer against loss rather than actually paying compensation.
So the government, with playing with their words and all stuff,
Yes.
they changed the act that was created to compensate workers, and now they insure the workplace.
Yeah, pretty
All
much.
right?
Yep, it's become more of an insurance company rather than an actual compensation board. The sad part is the reason that was put forth, that bill was put forth, is because the Ontario government did a review of the WSIB. Well, jump ahead 22 years. Here we are present day with an Ontario PC government
Again.
who is now with Whitmer in charge of the WSIB as chair, right? Is now under the Ford government. They're doing a review of the WSIB again. So that's only going to lead to who knows what, right? They're not doing claims review and stuff. They're doing review of basically probably how to save money, how to make costs better, how to, and they've already proven that by lowering the premiums in less than a year by over 45%.
How did Elizabeth Whitmer go from being a member of the Conservative Party into the chairman of the WSIB board?
That's a good story too, actually, because if you go back to, I believe it was when McGuinty was Premier of Ontario under the Liberals.
Another corrupt government.
And there was what happened was he offered Elizabeth Whitmer, who's a long time, she was a 22-year conservative in Kitchener. He offers her a job as the chair of the WSIB, basically increasing her pay, right? Because in theory, he wanted to win that seat in Kitchener.
Why?
He needed to win it to become a majority government.
To get a majority government,
So,
okay.
Luckily, thank God, he did lose that seat.
Yes.
But point is, why would the Liberals appoint their opposite, to the WSIB? And then years later, once he was gone, Kathleen Wynne took over for the Liberals.
Yes.
And she appointed her own chief of staff as the president of WSIB. And before that, he was her chief of staff 10 years before that even, as when she was a deputy for the education.
So he's been with her for a long time, and she gave him a little bonus of a job at WSIB because you took care of me, I'll take care of you. True politics.
And so now we got a Liberal as the president and the PC as so we know those two are not going to investigate WSIB.
No.
We need the NDP, who unfortunately is not in power, but is the critical and is the opposition. I don't know what we can do, but we need to really push the investigation.
I think what we need to do, first of all, Kevin, is I agree with you, we need to push anyway, anytime. But I think what we need to do is we need to educate the public on the corruption against the injured workers by political parties. All right? Then we can have a movement and stand up and push against them.
Yeah. Because back in 2010, WSIB hired under then President David Marshall, who's now gone on to the auto sector, auto insurance sector. He hired KPMG, who's a corrupt organization, to do an audit of WSIB. Well, that audit turned into recommendations that WSIB implemented, which led to cutbacks of injured workers' funds in order to pay down what the WSIB called their unfunded liability, which was the inability to pay future benefits. So if you go by different numbers, their own numbers, WSIB I think put it around $14 billion. Okay, 6 years later, they paid, or 7 years later, they almost had that paid off. There was still $1.5 billion, $2 billion left in it. And yet somehow they were able to take $30 billion out of WSIB, the Ontario Liberals, and put it in to create the Investment Management Corporation of Ontario. It's called IMCO. And they used money from that and from the Ontario Pension Board.
It almost sounds to me, Kevin, like the government is using WSIB to launder money.
It seems like that, because how do they have an unfunded liability of $14 billion, but then 6 years later have the ability to put $30 billion while denying claims and forcing injured workers? 46% of permanently disabled workers,
good point,
end up in poverty because, and the Sunshine List, WSIB every year, for the last 3 years at least, has added at least 120 people to the Sunshine List.
Well, that's a Sunshine List, in case you don't know, that's people that are working for the government that's making more than $100,000 per year.
And that's public sector salary disclosure, basically, on the... Yeah.
Basically what it is, it's an incentive for the adjudicators there for the WSIB to deny claims because they get raises from WSIB.
Yep.
All right. Basically, I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, and it's shameful, right? The people that should be getting benefits, healthcare treatment, are being denied, and the most vulnerable in our society. And it ties into a lot of different issues: poverty, homelessness.
Now that you've said that, what happens to an injured worker now that's been denied benefits? So does he end up being pushed onto welfare? Is that what they're trying to do here?
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is they end up having to apply for Ontario Works Welfare, ODSP, Ontario Disability. Some eventually do get forced onto Canada Pension Disability also. These are all taxpayer-funded systems, and because WSIB is not tax, no money goes into from taxpayers into WSIB.
No money at all?
No money.
Where does the money come from?
It's supposed to come from employer premium.
Okay.
Right, and they fund the system. Unfortunately, what happens is governments are too willing to give back rebates in premium, like reduction in premiums.
Yeah.
The Ford government, if you get particular in this era, has lowered just in 1 year, from September 25th, or 26th, sorry, 2018 to September 25th, 2019, they lowered premiums over 45%. That's basically taking over $2 billion out of the revenue of the workers' comp system or WSIB.
Taking that revenue out, that revenue is supposed to be helping injured workers with rehabilitation, compensation, and that stuff. So,
and not only that, actually, interrupt, but
that's good.
It goes into a lot of legislated obligations. So mainly, as an injured worker, of course, I want my treatment to be what it should be. I want to receive health care if I need it. I want to receive the proper earnings, not deemed into poverty, And not because I feel that I'm overly deserving of it. It's because it is, they say, workers' comp is a right. It's something that we fought for years ago to have, and it's been taken away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's sad because all these different things tie in to so many more problems. I lost track. Sorry.
That's good. You're doing fine, Kevin, and I'm sure the people are going to appreciate us talking about all kinds of different subjects. Kevin and I were talking a little while ago, and we're planning to do some more little videos like this and talk about deeming in more details, and talk about excluded from the healthcare system in more detail to educate the public. Now, we need more people to be vocal about this, and especially the injured workers. I'm not. The thing is we have to educate the public to get going. Every day, there's new people coming into the workforce. The ones that are most at harm are the young workers and the new workers. So please, in your workplace, please look after them. Look out for them. All right? They're the ones that are most at risk to get hurt in the workplace.
And people just don't understand. I can speak from experience. 20 years in September was my initial claim. I was dealing with the injury for 11 months before that, but regardless, 20 years. And I've seen the lack of support that you would expect to be, to get from people, to make sure. I live by myself, so people tend not to stay connected because you can't do stuff because you're in pain or you're poor, you don't travel, and venting like through activism is great because I get out and I get to talk to people about these issues, People don't understand, but when I talk to people out on the street, they a lot of times have relatives that have dealt with it and they understand, and it's surprising, right? Because the feedback is amazing when you don't have to be all. That's why I lost track of thought earlier, is because I get so passionate about trying to get people out, right? And we're not necessarily saying, even if you drag your butt out in pain. I'm in pain every time I go to a protest. It's a matter of managing it, using it as therapy. So emotionally and mentally, I am so satisfied at the end of that day, right? I feel like I've been productive. I've talked to people, but I pay for it for the next 3 days, or I don't see people, I don't talk to people, and that's the isolation that kicks in. And
so you find that being out in the public and bringing out your issues, you've gone, I don't know, what, 30 times or 20 some times so far this year?
Yeah, about 24 info pickets at Victoria Park, 3 protests at WSIB, and then some solidarity stuff with different labor, but tying injured worker stuff.
So you find that is like good therapy for you.
It is.
Plus the rest of the therapy, because now you actually, and I'm guessing because I'm not in your shoes there, but now you're actually communicating with public, you're getting back in touch with the public, and people are talking, and you're finding out that more and more people are being affected by the rules and the laws of WSIB.
Exactly.
People are getting hurt in the workplace. There's over 1,000 workers that die in Canada every year. It's a million more that get injured in the workplace. Many become disabled, and there's thousands more that get sick and diseased in the workplace every year. Do you hear the government talk about that?
There's 2 news stories on the same day that Ontario Labour Minister Monty McNaughton and the Ford government announced that we're reducing the premiums at WSIB 17%. After last year lowering them by 28%. Okay, so they've lowered the premiums that go, what I was saying earlier, goes into funding other systems, the workplace, to make places work, inspections, not so much the Minister of Labour inspections, but they have like different programs that companies can join up to say that they're a safe environment. And they have clinics that they fund for injured workers, and there's different things that get funded by that money that's being cut, and it's scary because we need those programs to make workplaces. We don't want injuries. We don't want to be, nobody wants to die and have their family member say not come home from work or forever be changed because of that, right?
How about if I put this one by you guys? How many CEOs die in the workplace every year? 0. How many CEOs get injured in the workplace every year? 0. How many CEOs get sick or diseased because of their workplace every year? Well, that could be a little different there with the stress, whatever, but I'll say 0 anyways until I'm proven different. So it's the workers that are taking the abuse on the workplace, and yet it's the CEOs that make the decisions on how safe their workplace is going to be. Go on to the Ministry of Labour's site, Ontario Ministry of Labour's, and go see all the charges that the Ministry of Labour has put against companies, and they were all guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty for harming their workers. And what happened? They just get a little fine, that's it. Meanwhile, the people are stuck with their injuries and the pain and that lifestyle for the rest of their life. Let me ask you a question, Kevin. Would you rather be injured in living the life you live today, or not being injured and having to go to work today?
Yeah, I'd rather be doing something.
You'd rather be to work?
You know, at this point in my life, I'd rather be able to sleep through the night and wake up not in pain, have something for the pain if I needed it, have some sort of treatment for the pain if I needed it. If in a perfect world, like Rene said, I would love to not have any of that and be able to work full time, go back to living a life, being able to go out to dinner, go out to the bar with friends, go out to a movie. You know, I don't enjoy any of that stuff. I don't, it's not just poverty, it's being in pain and not wanting to do stuff, not going out, you know, like I
kind of living a hermit lifestyle.
I can,
in
yeah.
the city.
I'm not a hermit. I hate being alone. It sucks. You know, it's you know, you do activism. Even if I talk to 2 people in an hour and a half, I have conversations with them for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and those people absorb and they contribute to the conversation. So it is something that you hold. They may remember one thing we talked about, right? But if you remember that one thing, you wouldn't have if I wasn't talking to you, or if somebody wasn't, you know, different groups, different cities do different protests. But we can't have it as a news story comes out, let's get mad at something. It's something that needs to be continually exposed, right? We have all sorts of campaigns to fight for stuff and fight against stuff. And why can't injured workers have this full out direct action movement? It doesn't have to be rambunctious protest, info pickets, banner drops, public appearances, anything, right? Go to solidarity with other activist groups, right?
And ask your members of parliament. This year now it's a federal election, all right? But it doesn't matter. Ask them, what is their policy for injured workers? All right? That would be a good one to ask. Anyways, thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
And we'll do this again. And I hope you people enjoy it.
Going to say that one.